Hey, so if you've been watching our videos, one of the ones we did was we went from what they call pine trees along the coast to Kohaniki, and we ended up at the fish ponds. Well, now we're back. We're on the other side. So Kohaniki is way over there, but we're going to show you how cool it is on this side leading up to the fish ponds.
Here we are at the Interpretive Center at Honokohau, and it's the one you've seen coming down the freeway just past Hinolani is where most people have seen it. Most of you have probably seen it and driven by. But today we're here and we are going to be heading up the coast to the fish ponds up about a mile from here. So we'll take you along this visit. As you can see, lava behind me and the ocean behind that.
If you come to the Interpretive Center here at Koloko-Honokohau, I highly suggest taking a look at these information boards. One of the cool things I found that I haven't seen very many places tell you about the amount of rainfall that comes down off the mountains, especially for those of us that like to figure out where the perfect place to live is. I did not know that the top of the mountain is only 25 inches of rain every year, and then you come down to 3,600 to 5,200 feet and they get 55 inches of rain. Then it goes down to 48 inches of rain between 1,600 and 3,600 feet. And then finally near the bottom, it only gets 19 inches of rain, which is the reason why it looks so arid down here. But the cool part is all that rain has come down through the different apua'as. There's 5 up here, and they all coalesce down here near the fish ponds. And so that's the reason why they have the fresh water for the Hawaiians that chose to live down in this area.
There is a better way to get to the beach portion of this than where we were up at the Interpretive Center. We are here at the Honokohau Harbor, and we are at the north side of the harbor, and there's a gate right over there, a little pathway that leads to the beach area much quicker. So that's the way we're going to take it.
Okay, so right next to me looks like a very inviting staircase up to a vantage point to look out over this beautiful experience, right? But you don't do that because this is a heiau, which is a sacred place for Hawaiians. And this word, kapu, means do not enter, trespassing. You're breaking rules here. When I first came to Hawaii, because I love exploring, that I remember I didn't know what this meant. And so it is really, really important that if you see this sign, don't go forward and never climb on a heiau anywhere in Hawaii. This is a very sacred experience for the Hawaiians. So I'm standing next to the IOPO fish trap, which is different than a pond, and this is super shallow, and even if you walk in through it, we just saw some people, the fish were jumping out. But what's interesting about this whole area is, as it was explained at the Interpretive Center, that the Hawaiians had everything they needed here. They had all the food they needed with the fish, they were growing fruits and vegetables, and they had fresh water, and they were able to have this beautiful serenity of this whole area. And they were really talking about the mana of this area, and when everything is going in flow, which I think when you talk about all the things being provided by the Hawaiians, that creates that sense of calm. You can feel it here too. Okay, so this is something interesting we just found. Look at hundreds and hundreds of shells. This is almost like a mitten that you would find along the coast, like in Oregon, where people had been shelling fish forever and losing all their shells. I don't know if that's actually happening here, but for some reason, out of this whole area, thousands and thousands and thousands of shells. Very cool.
Okay, low tide here, lots of green algae everywhere. We're heading this way, and on the beach there's a lot of turtles in the morning and the late afternoons that come up and kind of beach themselves and warm up in the sun. Let's see if we can see something.
This may seem like one big long beach. It'd be great to bring your family and go swimming, but you know what? Only half this beach actually is used for swimming, because right out here it's just a lot of reef, which is gonna be like slippery. But if you go right behind us, you can go halfway through the beach and then you can finally find a way to get in.
Okay, so we've got the ocean on the other side, and now we've just popped right over the beach over here. Palm trees and ankle-line ponds, and going up north, this is where all the fish were stored, and then they would capture them that way, but they're all held in these ponds.
Walking in the sand's hard, but get this, sometimes you find a little sea turtle action behind you and it makes it worth it. So we made it! Woo! That didn't take too long, about a mile and a half. When we showed you the fish trap on that side, now we're a mile and a half this way. This is where the fish were kept to basically farm them. And so now this water is brackish. It's part salt as well as fresh. And obviously it's huge. It's probably fed like, thousands of people. So the fish are still here today. They look a little like little trout, and there's different kinds. And we actually just saw a pufferfish in here too. So we're standing on a dry stack wall. So come out and take a look at the fish. One of the things that I thought was interesting when reading the plaques was that they said that the Hawaiians truly believed in the mana of the area. And Eric and I were talking about how we've been to these different places up and down the coast where the Hawaiians have had settlements of one kind or the other, and that like in Manalani, the Manalani was more...
It was more of a healing energy, more of a place, I guess it was a place that they didn't spend all their time to, they sort of went to and spent time there instead.
Right, for healing and for recreation, for the elite,
recreation,
right?
Yeah, for the elite, more or less.
Right.
From what we understand, of course.
Right, and then down south, they've got Pu'uhonua now as the place where you go to seek refuge.
Right.
Right, and that's a whole different energy, right?
Right.
So when you're up here in Koloko, it's actually where people would live, and then they would farm, and they would fish, and they would take care of themselves and the land. And so to talk about the concept of the land was that they said the Hawaiians believed that if you took care of the land took care of the people.
Yeah.
And so in that concept...
Yeah, definitely. These are good things to even think about today.
I know, right? I mean? So, in the indigenous cultures, if you're talking about Native Americans and, here in Hawaii, and I'm sure indigenous cultures around the world, especially if you're on an island, you have to take care of the land. You got to be cognizant of the ecosystem that you're in, because you're not going to survive if you don't.
And you know what? It's interesting. So coming from the mainland, you didn't have too much of a connection to nature in general, or where things came from, or how they got there. But when you live in Hawaii, there's definitely much more of you feel much more connected to everything. I mean, even little things like, is FedEx going to get here on time? You know what I mean? These are, it makes a big difference. So you start thinking of where things come from, and do you actually get everything? And your food, you know what I mean? A lot of Hawaii has a lot of its food come from the mainland, of course. Big Island is better than Oahu, but we still don't have much, food, what do they call that, time left. I mean, how many days of food are before the shipping runs out. So
Right.
These are things that you start thinking about, sustainability is
it's called food security.
Yeah.
And the Big Island is one of the only islands in the Hawaiian island chain that can actually feed its people who live here if all the ships stopped.
Yeah.
And a lot of the indigenous cultures, and the Hawaiians in general, are trying to teach the kids how to farm and how to take care of the land, because we never know if we're going to be in that situation again. Look at the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting with these fish ponds behind us that there's still fish living in here, and that there's still fish living in the fish ponds up in Manalani, right?
Yep.
So it's interesting that there's so much food that can be grown, raised, and just... It's amazing. That's what's about this island. They've got ranching, they've got fish, they've got everything. And the Hawaiians from long ago were very, very careful about keeping it all going. And what the Alihi would say, that people, the commoners, couldn't eat out of certain fish ponds, or they couldn't fish on certain times of the month because they had to keep it all sustainable. So it's just, the Hawaiian culture shows us what sustainability looks like.
And I hope we can as a modern age cutters get back to that.
Well, and also the concept of making sure that when you take care of the land takes care of the people.
Getting back to that.
Yep.
Oh, that was a long hike.
Yeah.
Coming back.
That's 3 miles round trip.
Yep.
So, yeah. But the good news is that there's a schooner of something tasty right behind us here at the Harbor House.
Yes, and if you guys haven't been here, it is tasty, and they have a lovely, let's show you around. They've got a great view right here of the harbor. They don't have any walls in the restaurant.
Right, so it's safe if you're COVID friendly. You know, the air blows right through the restaurant, and they have a really good burger, and it's not that expensive.
And the fish and chip is really good too.
Yep, and so if you like a good view and you like to be outdoors and you like to eat and drink next to the water, Harbor House. It's cool to be out there where nobody really else was, and getting back and being able to get lunch and hopefully jump in the ocean later. Another good day in Kona, I will admit. Okay, the Harbor House is known for their fish and chips and their hamburgers.
All right, so we have got done with our lunch there at the old Harbor House. Tasty is what I would say to that. And now for our last item of the day is we are going to head over to this place called Alula Beach, which is also known as Dog Beach, here at the end of the harbor. And we're going to jump in and see what kind of interesting things are in the water today. Okay, so we just came down here to the beach and we're getting ready to jump in the water, but there's been a lot of action here. As you saw that we had the DLNR police up at the top with their video cameras videotaping the snorkelers, and then they came down here and they gave 2 of them a ticket.
Right.
And so we thought we'd share that with you, is that here by the harbor that you are not allowed to swim in the
Shipping lane.
And there's a buoy out here and you have to follow within these things. And unfortunately, these people went outside as they were sort of following the dolphins around. So just a couple of rules that we learned. If you are snorkeling, you are okay, but if you dive below the surface and swim down, you will need a little swim buoy to show that you are doing it. That is the actual law. And the other thing that we learned is that you cannot chase the dolphins when you're out snorkeling as well. So if you see that, if they come to you, that's okay, but you can't go after them and swim with them. Right. So a few tips for today of learning that we learned, and next we're going to take you out.
But also, just to get, DLNR means Department of Land and Natural Resources. These people are in charge of our ocean parks, and they clearly, obviously, have teeth when they mean it.
Right, and they've been getting, enforcing a little bit more often these days, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, because no one wants to see people get run over by boats coming into the harbor. So, common sense. Right. Okay. So we're about to go in, and even though it's early March, it's still a little Chilean for us. It's probably about, I don't know, 78 degrees in the water. But there's cold, fresh water that comes in here, so we get further out, I'm sure it'll get warmer. But here we go for the first time in March. So if you are traveling to Kona and you want to take a charter boat out to see dolphins and whales and go mana diving, there's 2 main harbors in Kona. One is down at Keauhou and the other one is right here behind me. Honokohau Harbor is basically what we call our main harbor here in Kona. It's not that far from the airport, and as you can see, huge amount of boats. We have fishing boats and all that kind of good stuff. So this is where you go out to have all the good times out in the ocean.
So, we are wrapping up today. 5:15, a long day indeed, but a lot of fun at the same time. Yeah. The fish out there were really cool. I hope it actually turns out in video as cool as it was in reality out there. Unfortunately, the dolphins had already left by the time we got in there, but again, you're not really supposed to swim that close to the dolphins anyways.
Right.
So, so that was it. And then our last thing we want to say is, of course, hit the like button on these if you like us. We're always excited when that happens. And the other thing is that we are the ones that sponsor our own videos, and I'm going to let Julie give a little bit of demonstration. She
Demonstration. So one of the things that we offer is opportunities to learn more about moving here and buying a home. We have our website at move2hawaii365.com.
In the description.
And it'll be in there in the description bottom here. Also, if you go to the page, if you hit the blog site, I write all kinds of different kinds of articles about making your move here easier. We also have the Ohana program. You can join the 365 Ohana, and in that you get access to our Facebook groups. You also get free copies of my books, and you also get free Zoom calls with Eric and I about real estate and moving here. And then we also have access to weekly emails and much more, much more.
Lots of good stuff, I would say. So with that, we will see you next week with a new video.
And with that, aloha!